We'll start on Icebreaker, and what we want to do is head towards the engine room so that we can scout to see if any enemies are going to meet us there, but also to put us on a nice off angle for disruption play to scatter the enemies when they make the push. Then you want to roll back to point to hold space for later. Now you can slam off this high ground, but don't really want to because there's a wall in the way and that will deny any of our teammates from following up. For this point, you're doing a lot of quick engages for how open this point is. But when you see the opportunity, you can always try and isolate people with the scoop and poop combo, and there's a mega pack not 2 feet away from you while you're doing this engage in engine room. On defense, there's a funny setup spot where you can grapple on high, land on this little platform thing here, and once you balance, well, then you have the whole map where you can see the entirety of main as well as the right side. You roll down once you've got your scouting information and need to reposition, or just slam on them. The other great setup spot is near the engine room, where you can scout the engine room. If enemies decide to cross, that's when you can slam right on top of this wall thing here. If the enemies come towards the bow of the ship, nothing really changes. You do a lot of disruption plays, you can try and boot people off, but there's this little lip that prevents people from easily falling off. Of course, there is a spin to win spot that you can use here, and another spin to win spot right in the middle of this fan. For retaking on this map, you want to go through the engine room again. It's really good for ball. And before you engage, you want to make sure your team is in position, and then you can go for the slam. If that doesn't work out, you can always go towards the bow of the ship or the coast. This makes it so that the tank isn't in your face right away, so you can get a lot more poke damage off. For you want to continue setting up from behind, and then you make your move from there. The spawn rollout for labs looks something like this. Grapple on the building, and you want a fireball so that you can reach the coast side of the high ground. Do a little bit of scouting behind this rock because you're faster than everyone, and then you want to roll back into a default position. When the enemies decide to make their push, you boop them off. Depending on the comp, you might want to play second, and if it's a Lucio rush or some sort of dive with a Winston, let's say, and he dives in, then you want to try and peel for your team, slow them down, but you continue that momentum to slam the back line to prevent more follow-up. If you haven't noticed already, what you're contesting is this high ground. If anyone tries to step on it, you boop them off. If the enemies want to play point, then all you have to do is just hug this wall and put your pinky toe right on point. Your team has LOS of you, so you always got that assistance. If the enemies try and force you out, that's when you want to try and spin to win, and you always have your adaptive shields to keep you alive. Another thing to note is that you can simple wall jump off the side of the structure, and you can slam on high ground. For defense, you want to hold in this window. You've got a few things you can do. If the enemies go main, you can scoop and poop. If the enemy team decides to path towards point, then you wait for them to cross, you soft land, and then you try and force them out of this doorway. And lastly, if the enemy team decides to go coast, then you want to fall back completely as soon as possible, and then continue to stall with a lot of your disruption plays. You shoot to distract, and then you rinse and repeat. Retaking on labs. Head towards this coast side yet again. Check for your team when they're set up in position. Then you go for a swing around, grapple, boop them, slam them, and maybe that creates an opening for your team. The second option is go to the doors that lead to point and commit on the flank. Once ready and your team is ready, grapple here, and you do a simple roll through, and the minefield is always going to create more spice. The rollout for sublevel is pretty straightforward. You want to grapple, don't want to jump here because you'll bonk your head and slow down your momentum. Then you want to go to bridge. Once you get your scouting information, the enemy team is taking this bridge, you actually want to concede it, give it up. And then you want to grapple up, slam on top of the wall, and then rinse and repeat that type of strategy. You can also attempt to boot people down. It's a little bit tricky because the grapple angles change, but typically if you grapple up here, you can spin to win, maybe boop someone down, but also you can just slam on top of the high ground again. You play on point a lot so that you can force someone to drop. Depending on who drops, you can either fight that person on point, or if it's, let's say, the tank, then you can fight the people on high ground. As for people that like to play the far angle, you take this grapple and surprise slam them from the right side, but it also doesn't have to be that creative. You can just simply grapple up and slam on the high ground, and hopefully your snipers can take them out. If you must contest someone who's in the window, you can wall jump, and a well-timed slammed is one way you can deal with them. While on defense, this is actually a great setup spot for you to scout all 3 lanes, and when the enemy team decides to cross, you want to slam right on the walls yet again. Retaking on this map is pretty straightforward. You basically use everything I've taught you thus far. You want to force point so that if someone drops, well then you can contest the high ground. If no one drops, well then you just want to slam them, ideally on the wall. Alternatively, if those pesky enemy supports are causing a lot of trouble for you, can commit on the flank, go completely on the coast side because no one's going to check you there. Wait for the right time, try and boop them forward. You can also contest people who are on the bridge. A little bit of a trade secret, if you grapple right in the middle of this tube and hold your grapple while you swing up, then you can spark a fireball and boop people off that way. This is the Antarctic Peninsula map guide for your defense and offensive setups. No spawn rollouts because it's control, and that's going to do it for this video.